Okay, I suggest we actually stop for a moment. We start actually sharing now in class, and then we'll have a break and we'll go on. Okay, so this sort of interruption now will help us to actually see how we are thinking before we go on the tangent. All right. So how are we starting? Anybody wants to actually say how they would structure their response? So there is this blank piece of paper with a question. What makes you, show me examples of you being a literate person, I mean, of your literacy engagements, and as a result, what makes you a literate person? Okay, so there's a blank page. You have to produce now academic argumentation. So you write Anya. You say, dear Anya. That's pretty good, but it's the wrong genre. So, all right. So what do you do? So any idea how we start? So what did you start with? So we've got the table. We know that Anya will look at the table when she looks at our responses, right? So we know what the police is going to do. So how did you go about?
What we did, we broke it down basically and just discussed what each
Thing may mean.
basically
Okay, so, all right. So what did you come up with?
for which one.
I don't know, for however. So,
For the social and personal capabilities, we discussed what that looked like for us personally. Well, we actually discussed the critical, the creative and critical first, and then went left instead of going the other ways.
yep. So you discuss, I have to repeat it sometimes because it doesn't get recorded. So you discuss the capabilities, the meaning, what it means to you personally, right? So what you were engaged actually is clarifying the terms.
Yep, and then how it fits into literacy.
Okay, that's very good. So once you actually, so you started with the with the capital or with the capability with the capabilities. That's pretty good. Why didn't you go here?
Why didn't we go there? I think because we were trying to understand the table itself
The
and what
table
it meant
itself,
to us.
and it didn't have cross-curricular things.
We're not too sure how it did actually.
What was in the cross-curricular
Well,
things?
for us as not being at school anymore, but then I was thinking that it might be what with this the base that was learned at school, and then we'll just grow. Literacy will just grow with the rest after school.
Okay, the cross-curricular things are for every school. I don't know. They vary. It doesn't really matter for whom they are. They are. I assume they are cross-curricular because they go through for high schools, and I don't know. Are they going for high schools as well? I don't know. So what they have there is basically sustainability, which means what? Environment and community. So for us, it could be an environment and community, where they have indigenous and Torres Strait Island knowledges, connections, and Asian connection. Asia-Australia connections. Now you have to be a little bit inventive here, but I thought about it myself this morning quite a lot, and I thought it's okay. I actually work with these concepts in my own project, especially one with 5-year-olds, but yeah. Okay, so the capabilities is great to clarify for yourself. So can you give us examples, what you came up with?
I wrote something. I don't remember.
You wrote something, what about the rest of the friends?
Everyone said the meaning of being literate goes beyond reading and writing. It comes to the way people have been educated and how they have expanded their knowledge after school. Literacy identity should be expanded on a daily basis.
Yeah, but okay, but we're now coming with examples. You have to actually give me examples what makes you a literate person.
And then I wrote being able to communicate.
Now, what? Give me an example.
Communication.
We all communicate all the time, even if we are actually silent.
Reading a story.
Reading well, I don't know. I'm not gonna shoot like that. I want a grouped answer, not like I.
It's basically everyday life. You have literally
Examples. Anybody else?
writing on the discussion board on online.
So you will give me an example, right? Writing on the discussion board. And what do I do with that?
So we kind of started with that top line of the capabilities, thinking of it that we bring these capabilities and they're almost like a filter from their own discussion board. So
So capabilities function as a filter. Okay, so all of them. So critical is about, what did you say? What did you define as critical? Is there something more, right? Is there something more? Is there something more? All right. Well, it's a pretty rough thing at this very moment, right? Uh, can we work with that, and can we actually tell her what makes them good or bad on the discussion board? Can we just work with this example, unless someone else has a really good example? Oh, anyway, can you translate the examples you had to this one? So there's a discussion board, and the students are claiming that their participation in the discussion board is an example of them being literate. And I'm going, oh yeah? You tell me why? Because that's what I'm looking for, right? I'm not looking for a claim. I'm looking for a justification. And social, right? So the social capability. So the social capability is about what? Social capability is not, social capability is an outcome, doesn't say, it's as an outcome, it doesn't say watch what you say. It doesn't. Read the curriculum. Social capability says, does anyone know what it says? Yeah, but that's the sort of outcomes, but in a global sense. What it says is you have to be a person who, the general definition, the general definition. Can you read it? Have you got it? Just the general? Yeah. Okay. So, okay, so it says, okay, so that's again lower level, manage their relationships, lives, work. All right. What they do always in the curriculum, they try to find the balance between the teacher who doesn't understand anything and Peter Freebody, who was there probably on the panel telling them to raise the level of abstraction. And these are just bad assumptions. I actually don't treat you this way. Okay, social capability is about, there's two things. There's a personal, you have to have social awareness and personal awareness. You cannot develop as a person when you don't actually function in a society. So you learn how to be with people, and as a result, you learn how to be. It's that relationships. It's about creating relationships, being with people, developing teams, being out there supporting others, and as a result, actually developing yourself. So when you talk about discussion board, and when you talk about, for example, in relation to your inputs that might be actually assessed in relation to the social and personal capabilities, I would like you to tell me how you learn about being yourself as you are actually engaging with others. What is it that you do? How do you engage with others in a way that makes you grow? So, for example, are you now in terms of social, educational, and symbolic capital, social capital? Do you point them to networks? Do you develop teams? Do you engage in problem solving together? Right? Do you engage in long threads on Facebook, which actually show consistency in group thinking? Not consistency, but consistency that you actually can hold, can keep on the debate rather than I just wrote something and I moved on. Okay, well, if you did that, can you show it in some other way how you actually engage? So what was it? Social capital. How you actually draw on the social capital of a profession. Do you give them references? Do you say, oh, that was so good, I'm going to quote it in my own portfolio? Right? You make people feel good. As a result, you learn about yourself through your interactions with others. How helpful Can you be 2 hours? Do you go out of your way and therefore you learn? I can do it. I have found things. Now I grow as a result. One of the reasons why teachers like us have to actually participate in research has nothing to do necessarily with whatever people said, glory and all of that. It actually has to do with us understanding what we actually what we actually are given to you. Because we actually need to reflect continuously to break down. That's why I actually every lecture of mine is different every semester and every so often. Anyway, so discussion board is great. So let's have a look now. So we have discussion board as a context, okay? That's cool. Discussion board. Now cross-curricular priorities. Community building. Asian connection, Asia, Australia, and indigenous knowledges. In what way is your participation constructed in the way that it actually makes people, it leads to the sustainability of those communications, that people don't feel insulted, that you actually give people reason to come back, that you are one of those people who actually, as you are actually participating and the way you participate, you actually working with the vision that you want people to actually feel that they are part of a community, that this is just an ongoing reflective community. I'm just giving you an argument. This is not a PhD. Then another one is Asia, Australia. Do you draw or any examples? They may not be relevant. You can say they weren't relevant. But you can draw on intercultural examples. You can say that Australia is looking outwards, and in the discussions and so on, you may actually say that you are aware of that priority in the curriculum, and maybe you use some examples and so on. I don't know, I can't think about it. Indigenous, whether you ever make comparisons between different cultures, whether in your answers, in your postings, you say that I would actually not just consider A and B, so say that you actually are interculturally aware, and you bring into the table understandings that actually do not reflect Australia as a particular sort of closed community, but as an open community, and also gives examples of indigenous ways of participating in the life of Australia. I don't want to call it indigenous knowledges, but you might. Okay, but you are aware of it, that some people do things differently, some people think differently, they have different symbols, and so on. So when we go to the symbolic capital, we will actually show how different people function through different logic. Logic is not logical, logic is cultural. What's logical to you, it's not logical to a person from a different framework of thinking. And that needs to be taken into account when we teach. So discussion board has to be actually, so first of all, you can tell me whether you are actually thinking of your participations as an ad hoc, throw in a line thing, or actually you are engaging as a community person, as a community builder. And it doesn't have to be that you are a community builder, but that you are aware that people could be. Right? I'm not forcing you to be on the discussion board from now on and become a Fidel Castro of ELA 200, right? But I want you to be aware, this is just an exercise in thinking. So these are the sort of capabilities, actually forming a community, maybe making references to some policies, whether like for example, in the school where I do my research, whether we teach, even if we teach literacy, we do bring into play references from different languages, because we want children to be aware that, or we want lots of things out of it, but we want children to be aware that the world is just not one way, right? So that some people maybe write like this, some people write like this, some people write, I don't know, this is Chinese writing, just in case you didn't notice, and some people write like that, it's very interesting, right? When you start actually bringing intercultural connections and actually emphasis that being indigenous is quite okay, actually. And actually, we can learn a lot from bringing different frameworks, especially indigenous frameworks of thinking and of culture into our own experiences. So these are important elements. You may not actually we may not engage them directly in your postings, but in your answer to me, you would say, I wish I did. Just don't have time for everything. And I'm happy with that. As I said, you don't have to be Fidel Castro VLA 200. But if you write an answer, I want you to be aware of these kind of aspects. Then what else do we have? Discussion board, all of those things. Social and personal capabilities, community capabilities. These are the teams. We do teamwork. We do teamwork on campus. And then we refer to the work on campus in our discussion board. For example, what we did last year, sometimes where there is a forum, which is called on-campus lectures, I had students from on-campus publishing postings about what happened in classrooms simply because they felt for students off campus. And I said to them, it will never, even if students off campus ever watch our videos, it's never the same like hearing it from you. It just never is. And students wrote, and they wrote whatever they felt they heard in the class. It was great. And everybody was reading, and it was just great. So it's a way of actually giving to the people, developing a sense of being within the group, sharing, and as a result also learning about your own personal strengths. Because as you actually share, you learn that you are a person who shares. As you actually read those things from the capability, you can see, and if you connect personal and social together, you can see how they interact. Because without the other, you are not yourself. We are whatever we are through other. So we know we're tall because we've seen short people. We know we're short because we've seen something else, and so on. So through other. So social capability and personal, we give, and as a result, we grow. I mean, you have to expand it in terms of the phrases which are in both of the capabilities, but something like that. Ethical and intercultural. What did you say to me? Also forms of express. What did you say? How we speak to others. Well, maybe it belongs there too. So you can say how we speak to others, and therefore we develop an awareness of how to be in teams and how to be in a complex society, right? So I want to always connect social with the personal. So how we speak to others was great. We're aware how we speak to. So we're learning about the values, and we're learning about ethical conduct and how to be inclusive and all of that, and therefore we become different. We change. So that's great. So when we went to ethical and intercultural. So ethical and intercultural, what was it? Form, can you say it to me? What did you say? All right. So ethical and intercultural, so you are aware that not that if you, as you post on discussion board, you can bring frames of reference from different cultures, different ways of being, and so on. You are also aware that other people might be actually having different, like today I was online, teaching online before this class. Was it today or yesterday? I teach online all the time. And there was a student with a very heavy accent, and I couldn't understand. It's harder for me because English is not my native language. So a person who was a native English speaker, she actually typed in the chat, not necessarily what the other person said, but just to give me some clues, right? So I got it. So it was a very delicate way, without actually making the other person feel that I obviously didn't understand her accent. What she did was translate without translating, if you see what I mean. So she said to me, oh, this is the method they use, right? And I got it, but that's what the other person was referring to. So that was lovely. It was ethical, it was interculturally aware. So you look at the intercultural and ethical capabilities, what they actually say, and give me examples how you're posting on the discussion board or in any other context, I don't care, it doesn't have to be discussion board, reflect that that's what you do. I do this, I do this, I do this. It's very simple. It's all there. And the same for creative and critical. Creative and critical. So basically we're learning how, so creative engagement on the discussion board. Any idea? I'm kind of running out of imagination. How can you be creative on a discussion board? Basically have actually left of field suggestions, just different. Like the posting on, like even that context discussion board, for as a context. Here was left of field. I never thought about it, but yeah, that's great. So creativity. How else people can do? Critical, I would say, drawing on a diversity of references, bringing lots of references in. So it gives you a possibility to compare and contrast. Because if all you do on the discussion board is to quote Winch and, whoever else was the Winch et al., then it's just one textbook, flogging the textbook till the cows come home. Right? But if you on the discussion board bring different, Anya said this in the class, and one student said this, and someone else said this, and Ockerman writes this, and I saw a YouTube video, Sapolsky saying that. Now, I can't make sense out of it. Anyone? It's great. It's a great posting. What it says, it shows critical thinking. Critical thinking doesn't mean producing answers. It actually means being able to pull things together. And because it's a discussion board, it's not a PhD, you're not expected to produce answers, but you are helpful for other people if you actually bring things together and say, well, what about that? And that's it, you leave it open. So critical is actually leaving things open and bringing things together, bringing lots of things together, gather things and see whether you can solve it or other people can solve it. So there. And the resources it's another part that we're not doing now, but that will be for assignment 2. But can you see how big, if you actually start writing by looking at the curriculum, descriptors of the capabilities, thinking of a context, and how you actually do that, or could do it really well in that context. So it doesn't have to be that I do that. It could be, it'd be good to do this and this and this. For each of those, in this particular way, it's a big answer. Much bigger than, say, discussion board. It also shows to me that you can actually work with a curriculum. And you actually see how much is involved. How much is involved in an act of literacy participation or literate participation, right? If discussion board is a participation in reading and writing, you see how much is involved to do it well. So that's what we're doing. We're breaking down any context. You could have given reading a story to a child. We could have done exactly the same. For a person who doesn't think, the way we just did that, for them, they just read and write. A mother might say, well, when I read a story to the child, I cuddle it and we develop love. Cool. But it's not enough. You need to break it down. You need to break it down by basically doing what we just did. Open the curriculum and have a look, and also maybe use some resources that we have, but basically open the curriculum and think of the task of reading a book with a child in these many ways. It may be you will find out that actually you don't do much, which could be a good argument why I say that reading a book to a child as a mother is fantastic. But if you actually are a school teacher, it's not the way to go about it. There are much more interesting and interactive way of actually working with text with children than just you coming to the fronting up of the book and reading to them. Now, I use those words on purpose, right? Symbolic capital, fronting up, like, oh my God, there's you with your book, right? Right, so, right, there are more interesting and more interactive ways which will enable you to actually engage children in reading and writing as opposed to just you reading to them. So a context, the curriculum, and you have this graph here pointing you where to look in the curriculum, and just like you do, open the curriculum, read, also, and then give examples to each of those things, how they can be integrated in those in the context that you are exploring in a way to show how much is involved in order to actually engage in an activity as a literate person. Now you can see anyone can write on a discussion board, and the person who can actually create themes, who can bring new elements into this, who can make people feel good without actually making them at the same time think that they are geniuses. One thing that was happening and that doesn't happen anymore because I learned hard way. We had an excellent student a few years ago, but what she was doing, even if he produced a bad assignment, she would say, well, that's lovely. And then the student thought, well, I did a good job, and then there was a fail. So it's good to be actually supportive in all of these things, but you need to be supportive in a realistic and actually constructive way. And even if your comment, if you think you're wrong, you don't know whether you're right or wrong, ask a question in a nice way, but don't give people expectations that they are great, and it may not happen actually. So it's not a simple thing to participate on a discussion board, and breaking it down today was just a great thing. You can see how much is involved. Bringing information in, learning, thinking expansively about how people bring in different cultures, how people actually relate to different cultures, all of these things. If you wanted to actually participate for a PhD in a discussion board, these are the kinds of things that would have to happen. Right? Now, I don't require it because I think we're not.
So for assignment 1, is this the way you want us
Yep.
to do assignment 1?
If you say to me that you just read the book to a child, which happens, and I'll say, so what? It's not an argument. It's not even an example. And I have to buy your example. I have to buy. What makes it literate? What makes it a literate activity? And if you say to me, well, I just can't turn words into sounds, well, that's okay. But has that actually showing that your literacy capacities or skills are expansive, and that you actually have an understanding what's involved? You can break it down so I can see that you know where to from now. So you say, okay, well, I need to maybe think how I can bring examples about the indigenous knowledges, or how I can actually bring different cultures, or how I can actually incorporate more understanding about spirituality in my literacy. There's lots of things in particular context of participation, including reading to a child, as a teacher, that you can actually integrate, that will show to me that you actually know what's involved, and I can see that you know where to go. Because if you do that, you say, oh, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. I can see that I should probably do some more teamwork. I should probably think with people how to gather together to maybe do something from ELA to 100, right? Maybe together we could write a final unit of work or final sort of set of activities and actually go and teach in schools this particular thing, right? You will be submitting your assignments, especially assignment 2, on the discussion board, and you would be surprised how few students actually download other students' assignments to actually check and actually teach it in schools. I tell them, look, you will never ever again have free 200 lessons online. Right? They don't download it. Even just to, I steal. Every time you put a link to some online game or something, trust me, I steal it, I put it in my databases. Right, into my one of the reasons why I have so many games, because every time I see something interesting from a student, copy to my thing, right? I do it, but my students don't. They just move on. Done.
For assignment 2, is it a unit of work or is part of lesson plans?
They're not lesson plans. We'll discuss it when we get there. They're 5 sort of self-contained activities. We're having a break now because I think you're tired.
Are you saying this diagram would be useful for us for assignment 1?
It would be, well, you don't think so?
No, I'm starting to think that this is going to come in very useful.
Not because I want it. It's because it's a curriculum. It teaches you how to think expansively about engagement in a literacy context. And it asks you, okay, well, show me examples how it all works in a particular context, be it discussion board, be it reading a story to someone. Show me what's involved. And it's difficult. It is difficult. And you've been sitting here wondering. It is difficult.
So would you want a definition, say, of social and personal capabilities,
the definition, like, like what I just said, which is whatever is in the curriculum, whatever is in the, I think I have posted the definition in the PowerPoint last week. Just brief, sort of like one sentence thing. And then you go to the curriculum to look for the details of a general sort of notion of capability, and you can actually refer to it and show how you actually engage these capabilities in your discussion board, or how you would if possible. Or forget the discussion board for ELA 200, one day you will be in an association. How would you be actually making your association work as a team member? People think it's not relevant, association, yeah, because we're all busy, but they are relevant. All right? Are we happy to have some sort of so many minutes break? All right.